Hi everybody, I hope today will be a really quick tip about a topic that's probably been talked about way too much, and so I'm just going to pile on and add my perspective. I know way too many people that every night go to bed frustrated that they didn't get enough done, and specifically that they didn't get enough of the important things done. And it's disappointing because over 3 decades ago, Stephen Covey wrote The Habits of Highly Successful People. I think it was around 30 years ago, because I know I got it for my 16th birthday from my father. That tells you probably too much about my upbringing. And it really told us everything we needed to know. It warned us about the not important stuff. It warned us about the lure of the quadrant of urgent, not important, and not important, not urgent, questioned why we're even doing those tasks, and shifted our focus up into the important quadrants, which included urgent, important, and not urgent but important. And the quadrant I think that continues to frustrate us is that the not urgent but important quadrant. There's been some evolution in terms of the thinking since then, ideas around the motivation. So how important is it for us to really understand why it's important to us to do those things, and also even some work around visual clues. So always keeping something to remind us, actual visual clue to remind us of why those things are important. So that's been interesting. There's also been some evolution around discipline tactics. The one that may be most popular is the eat the frog kind of one, which kind of makes me cringe because frogs are actually kind of endangered and dying all over the world. But anyway, ultimately that is the one that is, very discipline oriented, saying do the hardest, ugliest thing first thing in the morning. And I think that's worthwhile. And then there's some work around energy management. So being cognizant of what kind of mood, environment, context do we need to be able to set ourselves for success for some of those tasks that just don't come naturally. But the one that we don't talk enough about, and that I want to talk about today, is the fact that many things that we actually put in that quadrant are not actually tasks. And the reason why we're not getting them done is because they're not making it to our to-do list. And they're not making it to our to-do list because they're kind of categories of goals. And the way you get categories of goals to have forward movement is to turn them into tasks. So I'm going to talk about that. I'll give you a couple examples. So things that I often see in people's important, not urgent category is something like relationship building. So relationship building is not a task. I mean, how do you don't wake up every morning figuring out, but meeting Peter, for instance, is a task, right? I got to meet Peter, and specifically a task is probably I got to ask Peter out for coffee, or I've got to get Fred to introduce me to Peter. So part of it is the trick of saying, there's these broad goals in my important but not urgent category that need to make it into action. Another famous one is family time. Well, family time is not actionable, but in your to-do list, if it says book the hockey game for the family this, for whatever date, that will get done. So part of it is the way in which we write things in those quadrants. Anyway, that's the main point. Having said that, I think just to make this a little bit tangible and how to kind of activate your work around your priorities, I'm going to share with you my process right now. I reserve the right to change it, and I reserve the right to learn more, and of course we all have our own process, but I thought just for the sake of this tip I would share with you mine. So my process is pretty simple. I use Evernote because I have it on my desktop, I have it on my iPad, I have it on my phone, and it's always synced, which is great. And I basically have several lists that kind of roughly tie to these quadrants, and I'll just explain specifically what I do, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. So number one is my core to-do list. What I call my core to-do list is really a weekly to-do list. It's really a list of things that should be done roughly in the next week or two. And it has some features to it, the main weekly list. It has categories, it has things underneath those categories, and it's probably longer. It's probably meatier than a week, but it's roughly a week, okay? And then I have a daily to-do list. And where the magic happens for me is on my daily to-do list, it looks different than my weekly to-do list. My weekly to-do list, as I mentioned, has categories and breakdowns and items. My daily to-do list at the very top and I do this every evening. I look at the next day. The first thing it says is committed time. So I look at my next day, I look at my calendar my next day, and I realize I have 6 hours of meetings, which means I really only have, with some multitasking and a little bit of creativity, I really only have a few hours that I'm going to realistically commit to-do lists with interruptions and everything like that. So I first look and I say, I write available time for to-do lists, and I figure out what that is based on my calendar the next day. And then I pull things from my weekly to-do list into my today to-do list that equates to that amount of time. And so most days I'm good at this and I'm realistic. And at the end of the day, I've done my to-do list, which is really rewarding and satisfying. It's because I've taken into account how much time I have for today. For that day. So that's every night, that's the discipline, just pull things from my weekly to-do list into my today list. Now, so my weekly to-do list inspires my daily to-do list, but what inspires my weekly to-do list so that we get into that important, not urgent category? And for that, I have actually 3 lists, okay? So I have, and you may need less, but I have 3. I have one that's goals for this quarter, goals for this year, and dreams, okay? And basically, I populate these lists whenever I come up with ideas. But the goals for this quarter is basically all the things that are too big to put on my weekly to-do list. And I used to have goals for this month, but I found there was too much overlap between my weekly to-do list and my quarterly. So I basically just have goals for this quarter. And it is a categorized list of things that I want to accomplish this quarter. And it's the thing that I go to most often to look at what's going to populate my weekly to-do list based on those. And when it goes from a goal to a task, it has a transformation, as we just described. And then I have my goals for this year, which is sort of bigger picture, not going to bite them off this quarter, but they're goals for this year. And then I have my dreams, which are effectively goals for my life. Things like I want to buy the condo next door, and I wish one of my neighbors would move, although I really love my neighbors because my house isn't big enough. So it's just a laundry list of all kinds of dreams that I populate. And I find that I do look at them. I flip through my dreams list. I usually look at them actually when I'm adding something because I've had an idea. And all of those inspire the weekly to-do list, which inspires the today list. So I hope this was helpful and a little tangible in terms of my reaction, but I really encourage you guys to dip into that important, not urgent category. It's where the magic is. It's where the things that will actually move the needle for you and things that will actually bring the most pleasure to you where they live. So I hope you've enjoyed this tip. If you have, please share it with someone that you think would find it useful. And please let me know how I should involve my system because I'm always interested in new ideas. Thanks very much. Take care.